Welcome to Select On Demand, exclusively on Comcast. And now, Wheels and Wings.
Welcome to our addiction, and this is it. You can't, once you're hooked, you can't get out of it.
With top speeds clocking in at 160 miles per hour, that's enough to satisfy the most insatiable appetite for speed. Here on the racetrack, away from the crowded, busy streets, these self-proclaimed speed junkies can push their motorcycles to the outer limits. To get in the saddle of one of these speed machines, you don't need a whole lot of cash, but you better bring your nerves. Maybe that's why the sport bike scene has exploded over the past few years, 'cause on this road, there's no speeding tickets. So if you're ready to trade in your four wheels for two, grab your helmet and hold on tight. It's gonna be the ride of your life.
Lipstick, attached to the helmet.
The Northeast Sport Bike Association, NESBA for short, is an all-volunteer network of expert racers dedicated to teaching newcomers how to tame their bikes.
Anybody new? Obviously, beginner, we're going to need to be on our toes out there a little bit with those guys. And obviously, it's a charity day today, so we get a lot of guys to come out for the one event a year that may or may not be used to the way we're doing things. So let's just be aware of that when we're out there riding with the guys. And with that, I'm going to shut up and let Rob take care of the rest of it, and I'll get the riders meeting underway. Okay. All right, guys, let's get this meeting underway here, because I know everyone wants to get on track as soon as possible. Some of you know me. I'm Mid-Atlantic Director for NESBA. Welcome to Summit Point Raceway for our third annual Summit Point Charity Day.
While all the kids are on summer vacation, class is in session for these big kids. Before anyone puts their wheels down, Dutch lays down the laws of the track. It's a dangerous sport, and when you're traveling at these speeds, you better know the rules of the game. So the golden rule here is to keep that testosterone level in check. And by the way, that goes for all the lady speedsters jumping on board today.
Lastly, I want everyone to look to the person to their left and look to the person to their right, real quick. These are the guys probably that are going to control 80% of this day as to whether or not you have a good day or bad day. We're all out there to have fun. This is not a race. No one's going to take home a trophy, umbrella girl, big sponsor check, contingency money at the end of the day. Our main goal is that you go away from here with a big grin on your face, and your bike and body in one piece and on the truck, and ready to come back the next day.
These riders won't be hitting the books today, but make no mistake, this is a classroom on wheels. Along for the ride is Bob Blandford, the president of NESBA.
This is an important aspect to get guys off the street and onto the racetrack where it's safe to do this type of riding. Sport bikes were made to ride, and to ride quick, and the street is not the place to do it. The place to do it is the racetrack.
Probably the first thing you look for in the beginner group is to get them on the proper race line. There's a correct line around the track. It's hard for the beginner guys sometimes to see that because they're coming off the street, and the line they're on the street is completely different than the line they take on a racetrack. On the street, you have to worry about crossing the double yellow. You have to worry about oncoming traffic.
The straightaway, you basically hammer it as hard as you can go for as long as you can. You look for your brake markers, and then you panic for your life to slow down enough to make turn one.
Riding a high-performance sport bike takes a lot of concentration, even when you're just on the street. Every hand and foot is responsible for accelerating, braking, and shifting gears. Now try that while navigating a serpentine-like track at high rates of speed, and you'll get a sense of the steep learning curve.
When you go out on a racetrack, it's a lot like playing connect the dots. You have reference points and markers out there that tell you that if you're paying attention and you set them properly for yourself, tell you what you should be doing at a different point on the racetrack. And then you'll know that at a certain point on the track, it's where you initiate your turn. Then you'll have a cone on the track that's the apex, which is the inside of the turn, where you want to clip the apex and drift wide. So we'll get them working on reference points, staying on the proper lines, and the big thing is smoothness and consistency. You can go fast and be all out of shape, but you know, if you're living on the ragged edge, it's going to be a short journey.
Basic riding position look for is leaned off the bike, weight to the front, and looking through the turns. Always looking through the turns. Look where you want to go. Everybody's going to be different because of the way that the height, their height, their weight, all kinds of other different things, the type of bikes that they're on. It's always going to vary a little bit.
For David Glover, getting back on the bike after a 6-month layoff has been therapeutic.
When I got on today, it was sort of like I had the bike in about a year. After about maybe 5 or 6 laps, you start to feel up. When you first go out there, you feel a little uneasy about getting the bike leaned over. Getting these big legs down and getting the knee puck down, it's been a little challenge today, but I'm working with it.
Standing 6 feet 4 inches, David is one of the tallest riders out on the track today.
There's techniques you have to work with being taller. One thing is that we do have a problem with for getting our knee out. When we're tucked in there, our legs are underneath our arms. So before we can get in a turn, we have to lift our arm up and then stick our knee out. So that takes a little time. So you try to get yourself set up prior to getting in the turn so you don't have to worry about trying to do it both at the same time. But that is something you have to, worry about being a taller guy besides the weight issue.
Tall or short, track days provide a great way to shake out the cobwebs.
If you want instruction, you can grab a control rider. Go out there and help me out. I'm having problems with this or that, and he'll help you out on a command basis. So you can come up and talk to him and get a lot of feedback and improvement.
I started as a NESBA rider from the beginning and progressed my way from beginner, intermediate, advanced. Did some racing, and now I'm a control rider. I've been doing it a few years for them.
Along with Jeff Doyer, one of the founding members of NESBA, Soren Jacobson still puts on his orange jersey. When not flying airplanes for a living, you can find him here, volunteering as a control rider. These guys are some of the best riders in the area and have a lot of race experience to pass on to beginners.
Remember, it's the guy passing responsibility to do it safely, clean. So don't bother with him. I mean, with the real slower people, keep them on line. The other guys, it's their responsibility to get on. Okay. That's what I want to make sure. Yep. Okay, thanks.
For some of these riders, this is their first time out on a racetrack. So a little pre-flight jitters are only natural. The groups line up in the pit area, waiting with anticipation, paired up with a control rider. Each control rider is responsible for 5 riders, and for the next 20 minutes, each group will follow them around the entire course. Repetition is the key. At first, the pace will be slow, so each group can get a feel for how the bike handles the track and the limitations of each rider. And when the control rider feels their group is ready, it's time to step it up a notch.
It's kind of funny, we joke around with our control riders that it's almost like you're sitting on a pivot on your seat. Typically when you're riding on a racetrack as a rider, your focus is here, and you have, maybe 180 degrees that you need to be paying attention on, nothing behind you. As a control rider, you have to be aware of everything going around you at all times. So it's a demanding job, it's a tough job. One of the techniques a lot of the control riders will use is they'll go through a turn faster than the group behind them is going through to get a little bit of a gap, and then they'll stop and they'll turn around on their bike and they'll watch their group of guys come through the turn, see if they're on the proper line, see if they're where they need to be. A wise man once told me you have to go slow to go fast, and it's very true. You'll see guys out there that are just They're not smooth, they're not in control of their bike, they're riding on the ragged edge. You go by and you say, slow down, back it off a notch, and you'll back them off a notch, take them around at a slower pace, and burn that race line into their memory, then slowly work them back up to speed. Last signal we use is a big windmill motion, which means go ahead and pass me. The riders are not allowed to pass the control rider on the track unless they get that signal.
Honda, Kawasaki, and Suzuki are familiar names around the track. But for Craig Ackenbach, he prefers something a little bit different. His Triumph, as the Union Jack flags suggest, hails from England. While it may not be as flashy as some of the other Japanese bikes, it can still hold its own.
Performance is about the same. It's a little different, you know. The suspension's pretty good on it. Brakes are pretty good. You know, a little tweaking with the power and it brings it right up to everybody else. I've been doing NESBA for about 3 years now, but I've been actually racing for my first year racing now, too.
The road to becoming an expert rider like Craig is paved with some pretty hard lessons.
Come in handy in the helmet. Cover up all the scratches and stuff.
And judging from the battle wounds, last year was definitely a school of hard knocks.
All right, I can get out there.
Luckily, Craig and all the NESBA riders wear the right protective gear. Everything from strong leather suits and back protectors to Kevlar boots and gloves. If you want any chance of walking away from laying your bike down at over 100 miles per hour, you better invest in some good gear. Last year alone, 3,500 motorcyclists died riding on the streets, and over 65,000 were injured.
I don't ride on the street anymore. I think it's too dangerous. People don't see you on the road at all. And for me to have a good time on the street, I have to the wall the whole time. So I don't do it, and I think most racers, once they hit the racetrack, they realize it's not worth it. Here you have an ambulance waiting for you. There's no cars coming the other way. Generally, if you fall off, you're just going to slide out. You're not going to hit anything. It's nothing like the street, where if you fall down in the street, you're going to get really hurt, and you're going to lay there for 15 minutes before anybody gets to you. Down at 1. Yeah. I'll see what happens in the next few minutes here. Okay. They went down there now. EMS is checking them out. Oh, sorry. He wasn't getting up, so I had to immediately red flag. Yeah. And I looked at the end, and there was no. I usually like to give it a second.
Then I saw the red flag. I'm like, what's going on? So I pulled in. I don't know what group of riders it was that this guy went down on.
I didn't even get everybody out yet.
No. Interesting. Well, I sure hope he's okay. Or her, for that matter.
Well, there was a rider down, and he was just laying by himself. So, you know, we shut down the track in the meantime. They were cleaning it up and make sure he's okay.
I mean, he was up and walking around. He just had a typical turn 1 low side.
Yeah, he just walked fine.
Yeah. Both ambulances rolled, and I'm like, oh, I thought multiple bike. I'm thinking the worst.
Going that fast.
If they do get in over their heads, if they do crash, which it does happen, there's staff and people available to help them.
We have the occasional mishap, but usually people walk away in one piece. You know, the bike may need a little bit of work, but you know, it's not that often.
This rider was able to walk away from the wreck unharmed. Although his day was cut short, you can bet this speed junkie will be back again.
I don't know how much we'll be.
Richard Stephen has been out riding on a couple of sessions this morning. And while still in the beginner class, he has demonstrated some real promise.
I've been doing this for about 2.5 years and just kind of slowly building into it, you know, not trying to be a hero overnight, you know, a lot of wrecking out there. We saw today, so just kind of working. But my plan came out. I wanted to come out slow in the morning and work it right towards lunch, and so I'm pretty happy it worked out for me.
You are looking at Jeff Doyer's view from his control rider's seat. Jeff gives the go-ahead for Richard to pass him. From this vantage point, Jeff can get a better look to see if Richard is on the correct line through the racetrack. And above all, is riding safely.
You know, my wife thinks I'm nuts, but you know, she knows I'm safe, and NESBA is a great organization. You know, their motto: ride fast, ride safe, and she'd much rather see me do it out here where it's legal than you know, be goofing around on the streets doing it. So from that standpoint, she's okay with it. I won't say, you know, she'd probably prefer if I didn't do it. She's probably going to wonder as I'm approaching middle age if I'm going to stop. So I don't know.
You work on all the basic fundamentals with the beginner group guys. Once they've got the fundamentals down and they show that they can be on the proper race line, have the right body position, demonstrate that they're smooth and in control of themselves and their bikes, and are running at a reasonable pace, we'll bump them up to the next group, which is intermediate.
Hooked up with the control rider there, and he liked what he saw. He's going to bump me up from beginner to intermediate class, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Well, he was comfortable. He was comfortable with speed. He was obviously smooth, consistent. It's one of the worst things you can be on the race track. Consistent. If you're not on the race line, other people don't know what to expect of you, and if they have to come by you at speed and you swerve out of the way, it could cause a real problem.
48.
That's it.
Cool.
You're all set.
All right, man.
Hey, take it easy when you get out there.
Oh, yeah, I promise.
It's going to be a lot faster than the beginner group, and I don't want to see your bike go all mashed to pieces.
No, I appreciate it. What was your name?
I'm Jeff.
Jeff, hey, I appreciate it, Jeff, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. See you out there. I will. It's a quantum leap to go from intermediate to expert. I'd have to get the whole bike. You know, my bike's, you know, for road and track, and to be a true expert, you need a bike specifically set up for racing. So I don't know if my wife's ready to let me spend that kind of money just yet. You know, gotta feed the kids and pay the mortgage first.
The biggest reward for some of these instructors is that the joy on some of the members' faces after they get it, after they understand, after they learn exactly what they're doing wrong, what they're doing right, and they go faster, and they feel comfortable going faster.
You get a great degree of satisfaction when you know you pull in at the end of a session and you've got this beginner guy, and he just looks at you and his eyes are like this big, and he's like, I have never ridden a motorcycle that fast through a turn before in my life, and you know, they just have this big beaten grin on their face, and they know they just had, you know, they may have been on the street for 10 years, but they've never had that kind of satisfaction and fun on a motorcycle before, and that's the reward you get for it, and praise and admiration, trophies and umbrella girls and all the swag that goes along with it.
You know what they say is the most fun you can have your clothes on. So.
She's addicted to it worse than I am at this point.
I have to talk him into going.
You know, now it's time for Dad to get out there and get that, you know, that speed rush on, so.
Look at me, I'm mid-40s now, for Christ's sakes. I should be not doing this, but I'm still at it. I probably will be at it for a while longer.
It's just freedom, really.
For more information, please visit our website at selectondemand.com or email us at programs@selectondemand.com.